Hi, everyone, and welcome to special simulcast, the Neil Haley Show, and the Storehouse Media Group podcast with our host, Sherrie of Storehouse Media. Sherrie, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest, and I am too.
I'm doing great now, and I am super excited about Charlie Fusco, and she is also known as that girl Charlie. And Charlie, because this is down my lane, storytelling. She's a storyteller, a connector, and an agent. And Charlie, welcome to our simulcast.
Well,
How are
thank you
you?
so much for having me, you guys. I love it. Double trouble.
Double trouble. There you go. Well, you have quite a background. I want to get into your history. Your father was a screenwriter. He owned
Yep.
a finance and film distribution company, and your mother was a top real estate agent. It was like, Charlie, what was it like growing up in your life?
Oh, it's a great question. It was creatively chaotic all the time. And that's what I could tell you. The My mom was phenomenal at sales, and sales is one of the greatest forms of storytelling. So whether she was dragging us from school to go help her man an open house, and we were the ones passing out Girl Scout cookies when the buyers, potentials came in. My father was in film distribution, which is a really fancy way of saying you work on a film project for 3 years and it typically doesn't get funded. But you spend 3 years trying to convince everyone that this is the movie that everyone wants to invest in. So I was just dragged into meetings all the time, and I might be in the back, doing homework while my dad's talking to directors and banks and actors and financiers. And then I might be dragged into the closing of a real estate deal and then, watch my mother negotiate between couples why they should or shouldn't, invest more or buy in. And so my mother was also from Mexico, and when you're from a different country, you tell stories a little bit differently. And so it was quite amusing to watch my dinner table because my parents always had a completely different side to the same story. So that's sort of how I grew up, was just seeing all of these different sides of storytelling.
And then you went on to get formal training in photography, film, art creation, writing, all of that. And then at 20 years old, you did your first commercial.
I did. I was, back then there was a dictionary. My picture was right there. Fake it till you make it. I was the poster child for it. I went to Northwestern. I went to BU. I was going to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker. That was where my focus was. And so, anything and everything I could shoot, film, be a part of. But I ended up following a boy for the summer to Portland, Maine, of all places. And while I was there, I stumbled upon this company called Media Power. And at the time, they had split off. There was two partners. They had split off. One took TV and one took radio. And I met the owners that took radio, and they were putting people on the radio back then called radio infomercials, half hour radio infomercials. And it was Tony Robbins, and it was, people now that you would never think, but really capturing the direct response market, selling anything you could imagine, books on tape, pills, potions, lotions. And I started there as a copywriter. And so I ended up never leaving Portland, Maine. I was just supposed to be there for the summer. And I paid attention, I listened. And in the radio company, I asked the owner one day and I said, how come you guys don't put any of these products on TV? They're so cool. And he said, we don't know anything about TV. That's the other guy. He took the other half of the company. It's too expensive. We don't know how to do it. And I said, oh, well, I went to school for it. I can do it for you. And they said, okay, fine. And they gave me a $10,000 budget and they said, go make a TV infomercial. And then you know what you do. You look in the mirror, you're like, oh, now I got to perform. Like, well, I had no clue what I was doing. So I spent 3 weeks watching infomercials like nonstop and tried to figure out what was the formula, what could you do? And um that infomercial went on to make $50 million its first year. Not because I knew what I was doing. There was just a little pixie dust, I imagine, in the air. But because it made that much money, the company turned around and said, here, make three more and fly over here and find us products. And so I just spent the next 2 years playing and testing and being a really good steward of their budget, but also learning a lot and going wherever they sent me. And so When I decided to leave and start my own production company around 23, um, I thought it would be hard, but I was kind of the it girl in that product zone. And so all the competitors came and said, produce for me. So that's sort of how that started. Not really intentional.
Wait, and I'm, excuse me, I love it that you kind of volunteered for something that you were like, oh, what did I just do? I don't know anything about this, but you made it happen. You know,
Yeah.
you and I tell, younger kids, I'm like, when it comes to your job, never say no. Like, yeah, I can do it, and then go learn how to do it and do it well. And that's exactly what you did. And you're just the epitome, the poster child for something like that. Yeah. And so I'm really impressed with that. I mean, that I can do it really took you far. It
Yeah,
was
and I'd
fantastic.
like to say that it was super thought out. It wasn't exactly thought out. It was sort of like, well, if I don't do this, what am I going to do? But I think it's a really important skill. And when you talk about how people are succeeding now, I think more than ever, people have to really take risks on doing things that they don't know how to do. I have a great team, and one of the things I've told my team recently is I was like, your right to ask me a question has no longer exists, that you should not bring me any question in life. You can bring me solution options, you can bring me opinions, you could bring me opportunity options, and then I can choose based on my likes, desires, budget, time, nuance, whatever. But I do feel like we're in this amazing place as creators and business people that we can go find out anything we want, but it's really what we do with that knowledge and how
Mhm.
we spin it and execute on it that is going to make or break us. And so people out there still asking questions about what is possible, they're standing still over here. It's the people that went out and said, oh, look at all the stuff that is possible, and then figuring out how do I adapt, how do I change, to it. I think that's this really great frontier that we're all looking at.
It makes complete sense because the fact is, you're right. We have all the information, but let's go out and do it. The resources are available more than ever. Now it's, are you willing to take the chance and go out and do it? Are you willing to look at what your talent is and do it and just do it? Problem is, everyone's waiting. They're waiting. They say, nope, I'm not doing this. Or there's always something pulling them back from really trying.
Yeah, waiting is one of my least favorite words, my husband says. So I'm not a big fan of the waiting, but yeah.
I get that. It's like people talk and talk and talk, and at some point we got to quit talking and do. And I don't have patience for that either. Like, let's quit talking. Let's just go ahead and do it. And we've got enough information to move forward. At what point you became that Charlie girl, and you started that Charlie girl, that Charlie girl? What was that because of everybody was coming to you because you were the person to reach out to?
Well, my team gave me that name. They actually named the company. I started an infomercial direct response company in 2001. And from 2001 till 2018 is when I was running it. And we had a real live call center, 500 people. We had a media buying division, a production division. And we not only did pretty much every product, if you could, have better sex, get skinnier, or not die from it, we sold it in a bottle or a lotion or a potion. And but along that, decade plus that we did it, we had to constantly adapt to things like the credit card companies cracking down on uses of 800 numbers on TV, like Amazon going from a cool idea to now taking over how people ordered product. It wasn't through mailing in checks and through calling 800 numbers. And when you feed your family on a company like that, with when you have 500 employees and all this, you start figuring things out really quickly. And so when infomercials started becoming less responsive and online was more responsive, I didn't decide to go become an online expert. I decided, well, how do we make people come back to TV, or how do we make people believe in these products that they think they can go find elsewhere? And so we got really good at celebrity endorsement radio. We got really good at bringing on sponsored celebrities into projects. We got really good about helping our clients write books that you would get for free if you ordered this product. You couldn't get that on Amazon. And so we started trying to figure out how do we bring people back to what we know how to do. But it came from this place of somebody's got to provide dinner on Friday. And if we don't figure out how to adapt, so there was a little bit different wired thinking when we did that. And that space got incredibly crazy and litigious, right? In 2016, 2017, 2018, from the FTC to the FDA to just everyone was in court all the time over product claims and privacy claims. And at the same time, call centers were being outsourced to overseas. So you couldn't compete anymore in any meaningful way. I was fortunate enough to be able to sell that company. And I remember sitting in my kitchen with three people I brought with me. We sold the company with all employees went with the sale, which is great. Nobody lost their job. But I took five with me to form the new company. And we were sitting around the kitchen table and we were trying to figure out what do we call ourselves? What do we call ourselves? And one of my team said, we should call it That Girl Charlie because that's how you get business. And he was right. I wasn't down with the name when he first said it. But because we learned, it was always like, well, if you need some crazy impossible thing, there's this girl, Charlie, you should talk to her. If you need somebody to figure out how to tell your story differently, she's got seven fish oil commercials from seven different companies on TV right now. Go talk to her. She figured out how to get this endorsement. Go talk to this girl, Charlie. So that was sort of my reputation was if you wanted to do something out of the box or complicated, we just kind of figured it out. But we figured it out from a place of we weren't going to go under, and so you think differently. And that's so TGC is the hidden code for That Girl Charlie.
Yeah.
And talking about those different areas and who are the people that you work with most, especially with the so many variety of services that you provide in your experience level experience.
So our client roster makes us feel a little frenetic sometimes. I represent some of the biggest and brightest in true crime. We represent some of the most creative entrepreneurial minds in business and in AI and in tech. We represent children's authors that have written their first book at 10, different influencers that have been on television for 20 years and are now going other places. We represent people that are lawyers that are fighting for rights in foster care programming, doctors, health people. We really try to represent, it's a very specific avatar. We want good people that are trying to do good things in the world, have the desire, the time, and the means to do it, and are ready to play ball, which is it's a good definition. We get it right most of the time. Most of our clients are really amazing people. But just because you want to do something great in the world, it doesn't mean you're going to do it at the scale you want. And so we focus on giving people scale. And that's sort of most, if not 100% of our clients are authors at some level. They start whether we're helping them ghostwrite it or they're on their 14th, book. Many will have TED Talks. Some we've put on Netflix and Amazon series. Others are doing sponsored or live interactive. It's how do we tell that story in as many mediums as possible? So for us, the perfect client is somebody who has something great to say and is willing to say it in as many different environments as they need to. So in 30 seconds on Instagram, 8 minutes on a TED Talk, an hour on TV, and even in a venture capitalist or a hedge fund boardroom, they're willing to shape that story for the audience that's directly in front of them, and that's a long way to say that we really sell great people into new audiences.
Mhm.
Do you help them with branding? Because you're really big into branding platforms, it sounds like. Do you help them if they come to you, you kind of niche down your clients for a certain brand?
Yes, 100%. So some of our clients come to us and they have insane brands. They're great. They don't need any real branding. What they need is strategy and logistics because telling that story in different formats, branding aside, there's a different way to do it. Sometimes our clients have fantastic branding, but they're telling the wrong story. And that's what I find is more than not the issue. Or they have a fantastic story, and when you finally talk to them, you're in love, but their branding is so terrible that they don't get to be in the right rooms to be talked to. So it depends on where they're coming. The biggest opportunity I think right now is, and it's a forced opportunity because of AI. Some people have been telling their brand story for 20 years, but who they were 20 years ago is not who they are now. And there's this sort of friction or this fear Well, if I change my brand story now, that's going to break everything I know. And what if people don't like the new story I'm telling? And with AI, what's interesting is AI is really good about telling old stories over and over again. It goes and it does its search and it pulls out your story for 20 years and it repurposes it out there. So it becomes so much more difficult to branch off. So let's say you sold your company and you're now trying to do something in philanthropy, or you got off television as an actress for 20 years and now you're really trying to go and be a female angel investor. Well, AI makes it so sort of impossible to move forward without intentionality. And the rub is, I think a lot of people don't know how to tell their news story. So they're kind of like, I'll just keep saying what I've been saying for 20 years, but it doesn't serve them going forward. And that's where I spend a lot of my time and where it gets me excited.
Mm. Yeah. And then you manage a personal platform and on a global scale. That's awesome. So for people out there who are trying to repurpose themselves, you're the person to see because that's what you do is you repurpose people.
I've never used the word repurpose. I think I'm going to start using that. I think I I'm a really good sounding board. And the reason I'm really good is I've been doing some version of story reinvention since college. But I've been doing story reinvention that's always been tied to results. Whether it was, how many phone calls after you aired an infomercial, or, did we hit New York Times with your book? It's the storytelling has to have some sort of results based to prove that it's the right story. And unfortunately or fortunately, it's transactional. So I've had a ton of experience doing that, and I've been really fortunate to work with some just extraordinary people. Where I think right now, whether you're in business, whether you're a personal brand, you're an author, you're, trying to do your own business at home, the world's changing so incredibly fast right now that we almost have less control over who's saying what about us, how, what we look like with, AI and tech. And so I think it's one of those things like we have the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to now reinvent myself or refine myself or repurpose my story. But you really do have to, my favorite thing is grab a marker and a whiteboard and whiteboard until the picture is super crystal clear. And I think that's the work that most people have to do right now, whether it's with somebody like me or just themselves going, do I really believe this picture I'm drawing for the future? And that becomes some really interesting internal work.
Well, what I see is that creative chaos house you grew up in has served you well. I mean, you've taken that creativity and, didn't throw the baby, what they call it, throw the baby out with the bathwater. You took that creativity and you moved forward. Good for you. Good for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Where can people find you?
Well, our website is tgcworldwide.com. So short for that girl, Charlie, worldwide.com. That's the best place to find me. I'm clearly you can find me on social media or LinkedIn at Charlie Fusco. I don't post as much there because I have all these children and they all say, Mom, you can't post our lives on social. And so there's a good demarcation where I used to be able to post and I was there. And now they make me be more private. But easiest way would be LinkedIn or TGC Worldwide.
Awesome. All right. And you can go to storehousemediagroup.com for all things publishing, media, and marketing and check out. And we really appreciate it. Thanks again, Charlie.
Thank
That was a
you.
special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show on the Storehouse Media Group podcast, guys.